What's up, guys? Today I'm not going to talk about a particularly rare, obscure, hard-to-find record. I'm not going to talk about a brand new release or something that's recently been unearthed. Instead, I'm just going to talk about one of my favorite records, and kind of one of the oldest, at least for hip-hop. Blam! The Adventure of Super Rhyme by Jimmy Spicer, Daz Records, 1980. Now, this is a great record for a lot of reasons. Jimmy Spicer sounds really good on here. He's got a really interesting flow and a nice voice. It's really kind of smooth, especially for 1980. Smoother than probably you'd really heard from anybody else. And the production is really good. Of course, being 1980s, that really live disco sound band kind of stuff, which everybody was doing, but this sounds better than a lot. Like, for example, when Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force crew talk about Zulu Nation Throwdown, they were saying that, oh, that song sounded like circus music, which I think is excessively self-critical, actually. I like Zulu Nation Throwdown a lot. But you can hear, the instrumentation in this is definitely, just on a skill level, a bit of a kind of above Zulu Nation Throwdown. It just sounds really good. It's really funky. It's got a classic bass line and disco breaks and just everything you would expect from a 1980 hip-hop record. But it just sounds really good. And Jimmy Spicer just sounds really good on it. And it's really probably what it's most famous for and most highly regarded for today is how it's really sort of the precursor to storytelling / narrative rap. Now, obviously, of course, this is not to say that this is the first time anyone's ever sort of done a narrative rap before. Of course, really famous examples on Rapper's Delight, Wonder Mike talks about, even though it's told in the second person, the story about going to a friend's house to eat and the food just ain't no good. And obviously, even though by 1980, hip-hop was pretty brand new on wax, hip-hop artists have been doing rhymes and contributions to the art form for years, just live. And so you had guys like the Cold Crush Brothers and all with, I'm sure, all kinds of narrative routines that just didn't really quite make it onto wax. But this is the one that really, first of all, really solidifies it, and then just really goes hardcore in it. There's two versions on the 12-inch. The short version on the B-side is over 10 minutes. That's the short version. The full-length version is 15.5 minutes, and it's really non-stop rhymes. There are little tiny breakdowns, especially, and a little bit of instrumentation at the end, but basically he's just going flat out from beginning to end, no hook, just plain out flat rhyming, no passing the mic back and forth to other people. There's a little bit of a shout and call and response bit to the crowd, although the crowd in this case is just like 3 people who are in the studio. It actually sounds a little pathetic, but it sounds so funky that, that it's not a flaw. In fact, it adds some humor to it, and there's a lot of humor in the record anyway. It's that kind of really great old school humor where it's witty and the MC is sort of endearing and charming, but without being sort of like 90s hip hop funny where it's very jokey and punchliney and tons and tons of awkward similes and pop culture references, and where just like a lot of hip-hop records started to sound like a bad stand-up routine. This is much more when it's just, very ingrained in the flow and just very fun. And it's just really dense lyrically, non-stop rhyming, and it's actually like narratives within narratives. He starts out with sort of a typical kind of, I'm from planet Rhymon, I'm here to rock the planet Earth, and that talks about a story about going to rock a party, and he meets not Howard Cosell, but Coward Cosell, who compels him to rhyme. And then he tells stories within stories. He tells this really long, it could easily be a song completely unto itself, lengthwise and content-wise and substance-wise, about Aladdin who gets 3 wishes and becomes rich, and he goes through, his whole story. And he tells another story, which is actually my favorite part of the whole record. I love the whole record, but my favorite part is easily the Dracula segment, which is really fun. Very great kind of little Halloween-ish kind of segment where he raps as Dracula, and he tells a story about how Dracula goes to New York and visits Studio 54. And what's great about it is he actually does the whole thing of just that segment in a Transylvania, very kind of put-on classical Dracula accent.
I ran to the DJ to rock the mic. He said a super rhyme sticky, do what you like, so I rocked the party viciously. This guy didn't know, walked up to me, but the closer he got, the more I could tell it was the man they call Coward Cosell, the guy you'd see on KBC while Joe Frazier boxed Muhammad Ali. He said, "Excuse me, sir, are you Super Rhymes? The one with the fine woman lowest line?" I said, "I am. Will I be on TV like the fruit, like a butterfly stinging Ali?" He said, "Yes, my man, if you show me you can." I was told you had the master plan, so I rocked the mic for Howard Cosell to show America how I rock so well. And while I rocked the mic, this is what I said about Dracula, the living dead. He didn't like blood, not this vampire. The disco beat was his desire. Transylvania's where he made home until one day he decided to roam. And then out of the crypt he did crawl. Count Dracula is what he's called. He said the sun's gone down and now it's night. I'm going to spread my wings and take a serious flight. I turned into a bus, I flew away. I said that the disco is where I gotta stay, because back home there was nothing like this. And Transylvania, this is what I'd miss. They just bite necks and suck blood all day when I knew there had to be a better way. I packed my car and said, vampires, I am leaving. So I turned into a bot and cut out that evening. The first disco I hit was 54. They didn't even want to let me in the door. I said, listen, my man, I'm a real cool guy. I can turn into a bot, I can even fly. He said, Dracula, you can do all of that. Then come on in and get your meat and bring a taco. So I went inside and I started to dance and had all the ladies waiting for their time. They said, they isn't he cool with his windows.
By the way, did you catch that? Not only is it narratives within narratives, but that was accents within accents, where he does the tough, gruff bouncer's voice within Dracula doing his Transylvania accent. Fun. And what's interesting too about that segment is that it really spawned the career of a whole nother artist. Blam, Count Coolout. Now, Count Coolout was actually Jimmy Spicer's brother-in-law. He'd already been performing with Jimmy Spicer. I think he was a dancer, and theoretically he does some of the backup vocals on the Adventure Super Rhyme record. And it's pretty obvious what aspect of himself as a recording career he took from Adventure Super Rhyme. Now, he doesn't actually go and full out and do the Transylvania accent, which is actually probably a wise choice, because it sounds really fresh, for a segment of Adventure Super Rhyme, but an entire career where you're doing a very put-on, cheesy, over-the-top accent is probably not the wisest idea. And he did some really nice records for a couple years coming out of Philly. I mean, he's actually from Brooklyn, but he was on a Philly label. He's from Brooklyn, and Jimmy Spicer is from Queens. But they recorded together, did shows together. And you can really feel, I mean, Count Coolout is almost like Jimmy Spicer's alter ego. They really have very similar flows, similar styles. He kind of breaks up and does little sing-songy parts and all, just like Jimmy Spicer. They really have a lot in common. They really, and that's great. I mean, that's not a put down like he's a knockoff or anything. If he is, I mean, Jimmy Spicer was a great artist who didn't do enough records, so to have almost more Jimmy Spicer records in the career of Count Coolout is just fantastic. See, it's just a really great record, and it's a little bit, it's not quite maybe as street as a lot of other hip-hop, even the disco era hip-hop that's coming out at the time. He feels a little bit more like an outsider artist, sort of, compared to like Grandmaster Flash and all that. And he did, later on, Jimmy Spicer, put out a record on Def Jam and trying to get a little bit more plugged in. And actually, I think that kind of worked against him. I think he's stronger doing more of his own kind of style, like you hear here. It's just a lot of fun. It's just a lot of talent is really what it is. You really feel like he's got something new, and he's got really something compelling. He just managed to make the thing a thoroughly engaging listen. The entire 15.5 minutes is like too short. You wanted to go on more. It's just fantastic. It's a great record. He's done other great records, Dollar Bill Y'all, The Bubble Bunch, but this, even out of those, is my favorite and his first. But we can't end yet without touching briefly upon Super Rhyme 89. This is almost, not quite, the last Jimmy Spicer record. There's a very, very rare one called I Knock Boots that I believe is from 1990, but essentially this is his last one. But really, I don't know how involved Jimmy Spicer was with this at all. Obviously, it's a remix of the Adventure Super Rhyme, so all the vocals are the same. Now, this is not 15.5 minutes. It's not even 10 minutes. This is edited down to just under 5 minutes. But fortunately, they do manage to include the Dracula part, so I'm happy. But no, it's actually a lot of fun. It's produced by a group called the Miktar Posse. I have no idea who they are, although they also produce the B-side, which I'll get to in a second. But they're good. It's funky. They don't turn it into like a club house dance track or anything terrible. It's, in many ways similar to the original. It's updated, but it keeps the really kind of funky bass line kind of feel to it. And they add a little bit of keys to it and all, but it sounds good. It sounds really well done. So it's just a good time. I was, dubious when I first heard about this record, but now that I have heard it, I actually really enjoy it. It just kind of comes off, it doesn't replace the original. It's certainly not better than the original. But it just comes off as a really fun epilogue. It's enjoyable. It's a good time, and I recommend it too. And the B-side is by a crew called, what is the crew called again? Love's Foundation, and the song is called Why Not Be True. And there's 2 versions, although they're not terribly different from each other. Again, produced by the Miktar Posse, and it's a love song. It's a rap song. It's hip hop. It's very much in the time. if you think of 1989 when they used to have a token love song on every rap album, from Big Daddy Kane to LL Cool J, who probably started it, Craig, all those guys would have that sort of kind of sappy love song on there, where it's a little bit more spoken wordish and all that. That's what this is. This is well done. It's a well produced song. It sounds pretty good, but I don't think you'll be rushing out to add to your collections for this song. But definitely, if you're a fan of the Adventure Super Rhyme and Jimmy Spicer, again, there's really not enough Jimmy Spicer material out there, so this is definitely worth adding to your collection too. Again, it doesn't replace the original, which is classic, but still a good time. Really, there's no way you can go wrong with the Adventure Super Rhyme, no matter how you do it.
Rhymes faster than a speeding bullet. Has more rhymes than a train has tracks. Able to leap sucker MCs in a single rhyme. Look at the jam of the mic. It's a bird.
It's a plane!
No, I'm super rhyme.
It is a little bit more clubbish, of course, at first, but
Thing makes you wanna swing while us MCs rap. Doing our things, not singing like it used to be. Me, it's rapping to the rhythm of the show. I do goes 1 for the money, 2 for the show. You got my beat, now here I go. You see this DJ, he gets down, mixing records while they go around with a hit. The hop, you just don't stop. You rock to the beat till it makes you drop. Yes, I'm one of a kind. I'm super rhymes and I'd like to say hello. I sit on the mic and I'm ready to rock. Oh, this is how it goes. Yes, I rock so good, I rock so well. I ring ding dang, a ding ding a dang, baby. I'll ring your bell. Yes, I'm super rhymes, I'm 22. I wanna be 100 before I'm through, because no, I didn't come from the planet Earth. Planet Rhyme is my place of birth. From the day I came out my mother's womb, I found myself in the operating room. Then the doctor spanked me on my behind. I didn't cry, the kid started to rhyme. My mother said, son, that's the way it should be. Your name is Super Rhymes, you'll be an MC. So then my father put me on a meteorite. Sent me to Earth to rock the mic. I got to Earth and started laying it down at the jam of the mic. I could be found while I was at the jam of this one time. I rocked into the beats and I'm feeling fine. Just a freaking out on the freaks behind. I looked in the face of Frankenstein. I said, oh no, she's not mine, because my woman is fine as wine. And she goes by the name of the lowest line. But she didn't come here with me this time. I'm feeling real sad, but not that bad. I'm gonna have to run away from this crow dad. I ran to the DJ to rock the mic.
so yeah, just a look back at one of my favorite, really fun of especially the super old school disco era hip hop records, with just a little touch of Dracula in there, hopefully to get you in the mood for the encroaching Halloween. Till next time, peace out.